all, not at all. Everett's the type of child that I go into the grocery store. I don't even like to take him with me because he befriends everyone in the grocery store. He says hello to everyone. He brings them. He draws attention to them. He does the same thing in church, and everyone surrounds him, and so he feels that everything is safe and the world is perfect, and so I was not surprised. Everett just has that aura about him.
Most of the people in our audience felt that their child would not go. You felt your child would not go. Probably your child would go. JJ's going to help us. We're going to show you some more of this when we return. We'll be right back. Was abducted right out of her own home during a slumber party, the nation reeled in horror. Now, for the first time since his daughter's killer has been found guilty, we're going to find out why Polly's dad believes that his daughter's murder could have been avoided. A shocking story next.
Jim, it's the
wrong way.
I walked around the car, Sally, the guy's legs fell off.
And the right way to find Mr. Right. Next, Sally.
We're going to explain those as we go along. Today, we've been devoting this hour to teaching you how to protect your children and keep them out of harm's way. We've also heard from parents whose little girls have been abducted and are desperate to get them back. Sadly, that's something that will never happen for my next guest. This is Mark Klaas, and I don't think there's a person out there who wasn't horrified when they heard that his little girl, Polly Klaas, was abducted right from the safety of her own bedroom. I mean, you think about where in heaven's name would you be safer than in your own bedroom. This was a story that shocked us all. Mark, for those who may not be familiar with Polly's story, can you take us back and tell us what happened the night she was abducted? Am I right? There would be nothing safer than a child in her bedroom?
October 1, 1993, 10:30 in the evening. Polly and I had spoken earlier in the evening. She lived with her mother in a town called Petaluma, California. I lived 30 miles away in a town called Sausalito, California. The last thing, fortunately, that Polly and I said to each other was that we loved each other. Polly was having a slumber party with two of her girlfriends. Her mother was sleeping in the next room, in the next bedroom, and Polly had opened her bedroom door so they could put their sleeping bags in the living room. They had been playing a game called Perfect Match that little girls play. They were 12 years old, all three of them. And when Polly opened the door, a large bearded stranger with a butcher knife was standing there. He told the girls to turn around. He told them that if they made a noise, he would slit their throats. He then tied up Polly's girlfriends, gagged them, put pillowcases over their heads, told them that he was there for the money. He told them to count to 1,000 and he would be back. He then stole Polly into the night. Polly's last words were, "Please don't hurt my mother and sister." This is the little girl who put the welfare of others ahead of herself in her worst possible moment. It certainly is my loss that Polly is gone, but I think that society needs people that are willing to do that. I have no idea what Polly would have achieved in life, but she certainly would have been a marvelous mother and a marvelous role model. Anybody that's willing to put the welfare of others ahead of themselves in this worst of all possible conditions is certainly a credit to our society.
The story, of course, does not have a happy ending.
No.
You searched and you prayed for your daughter's safe return for 65 days, and then you got a phone call that changed your life.
That's correct.
Can you tell me what you were told?
Well, sure I can. In fact, leading up to that, the police had tried to tell me that my daughter was probably dead, and I resisted that just as these very courageous women have resisted for 14 months and for 6 weeks now. And I personally, for one, do not for a minute believe that their daughters are dead. These girls are out there and they're going to find them.
What did they tell you?
Well, they called me and they asked me to come to the police station, and I went in, and there was one of our FBI agents and one of the Petaluma policemen They had tears in their eyes, and they told me that Polly had been located. We knew that the person that had done this had been arrested 6 days previously, that she had been located, and that she was dead. And it really was, I was in denial for a couple of hours. I had really put up a lot of barriers, as people tend to do in these situations. And then I had to call my family and inform them that Polly was dead. And we then had to inform the people at our volunteer center, because people had to know before they heard it on the television set, really, is what it was.
You say that the tragedy of Polly's death is that it could have been avoided.
Sure.
What do you mean by that?
Well, it could have been avoided through a variety of ways. Just as Stacy's neighbor watched her daughter be abducted, people in Polly's neighborhood knew that there was this ominous bearded stranger, and yet they were in denial about it. They wouldn't do anything about it. This is what we mean by the village raising the child. We all have to take responsibility for each other's people, and it didn't happen in her case. It didn't happen in our case. Also, and that's very unfortunate. Also, legislatively, once these people are identified, we have to put them in prison, and we have to keep them in prison. Unfortunately, the average child molester in this country only spends a couple of years in prison for a first offense. And then we're getting into all of these things now, like chemical castration, like Megan's Law, all of these different things to deal with these punks when they get back out onto the street. Why are we putting them on the street? Why are we letting them back?
You may be interested in knowing that
Polly's killer bragged about wanting to get a young girl while he was in prison. Is that correct?
It was his definition of safe sex. He was going to avoid AIDS by getting a young one.
You attended the trial of Polly's killer, Richard Allen Davis, every day for a year. How could you do that?
How could I not? In our criminal justice system, there is really nobody there to represent the victim. If one is lucky, the goals of the prosecutor and the victim's family are the same. But really what they do is they take the last 2 hours of my daughter's life and they compartmentalize it, dissect it, and deal with it in very clinical terms. So we had to be there, my mother and father and my wife when she could, and I had to be there to remind the jury consistently that this trial was about the victimization of a little girl who was tortured and murdered, and not about the victimization of this guy that did it. We have this very strange double standard in our society where if you or I or anybody here does something wrong, we take responsibility for it, hopefully. We learn from our mistakes and we try not to repeat it. But if you're a criminal, particularly a habitual criminal, then you can always say, well, gosh, my past made me do it. My mother mistreated me or something like that. You can always find other shoulders to shift the responsibility on. And really what we have to do in all levels of our society, in the family, with the children, with the parents, in the community, in politics, and even in the criminal society, is take responsibility and share responsibility, but keep it on our own shoulders.
Was justice finally served in your case? Can you tell us what happened?
Well, justice will never be served. I mean, nothing will ever bring Polly back. And it's very interesting. He will be given the death sentence.
Her killer was not even remorseful, even to the end. What happened when he heard the verdict?
Well, I was standing right next to the camera. He turned and flipped me off with both fingers is what he did.
Okay, let's take a look at that. There he is. That's at the verdict.
Yeah, well, I'm his worst nightmare, just like he was her worst nightmare.
we'll be right back.
If you'd like to order a video cassette of Sally's show for only $24.95, call Video Archives at 1-800-FOR-VIDEO. For a transcript, send $3 to 1535 Grant Street, Denver, Colorado, 80203, or call 303-831-9000.
Today on News Channel 4 live at 5.
They just don't stop. There's times that
100 U.S. search.
By the way, Mark Klass discovered that Richard Allen Davis was a repeat offender. He was out on parole for only 3 months when he took Polly. He just finished serving 1/2 of a 16-year sentence for another kidnapping. The question is, what can we do as parents to better protect our kids? Well, with the help of JJ, we have created a few tape dramatizations that'll show you some of the most common ways your children can be lured into danger. Here's scenario number 1. Take a look at the tape.
Excuse me, little girl. I can't hear you. Can you come over here? Please come over here. I need some information. I'm lost, and I need to get to the hospital. Can you tell me how to get there?
Okay.
Can you come with me and show me how?
Okay.
Okay, why don't you get in the seat? Go around the car and come in.
JJ, quickly, what's wrong with that picture?
What has happened here is he's making an appeal to his child for directions. First of all, you know that's all BS because men never ask for directions, right? Second of all, the fastest way out of it if you're being approached by somebody in a vehicle is to go opposite of the direction that the vehicle is going, because it's easier for the kid to turn around and go the other way than it is for this guy to go turn the car around. You also notice that was a one-way street. So it's a lot easier for her to go the other way.
Now, here's another really commonly used ploy. Please take a look at this.
Chris, I'm so glad I found you. Your mother is in a hospital. She's not feeling well. I'm a friend of yours. Your mother, we need to go to the hospital right now. Come on. We have to go. I'll tell you in the car. We have to get in. We can't waste any time. I'll tell you as soon as we get in the car. Get in the car.
Okay, what's wrong with
Well, first of all, he's got his name on his backpack, and that's wrong because you don't want to identify your children to people that can come up there. Second of all, there should be no dialogue between the child and the stranger, and there should be a password in place.
You talk about being a tough target and taking action. Here's an example of what your child could do if he or she found themselves in the situation you just saw. Please take a look at this.
Chris, you've got to stay here.
No.
Yeah.
Teach them to grab the keys, hit the horn. What else could a child do?
There's a lot of things that could... First of all, flee is the best option for a child because you can't catch a 9-year-old. It's impossible for an adult to do that. And flee is the best option. Also, if he has to drop the books, you saw him drop the books there. Drop the books and run. You just drop those books. Those books are not important. What you should have in there is the name of the child and the address of the school. So if he finds the books or has the books, he still can't take them back to your house.
Don't put your home address in those books. Put the address of the school.
Correct.
I want to tell you the story of a 13-year-old boy named Cameron Noel, who really came to the rescue of a little boy and probably saved his life. Take a look at this.
I've seen this car, and it come down the wrong side of the street and parked the wrong way. When we got even up to the car, he jumped out, grabbed Ernie by his mouth, and pulled him up by the pants and threw him in a car and shut the door. And I thought maybe this guy would rape him or hurt him or kill him. That's when the guy turned around. I kicked him where it hurt right between the legs, and I jump kicked him twice in the head, and the guy fell down on the ground. And I opened up the car door, and I let my friend free. And I put him on my shoulders, and we ran to school. After school, my friends told me they thought to me, Uncle Carrot, thank you for doing that. And I said, what did I do?
Cameron,
that's a true story.
Here's what I think you did. You saved the little boy's life, and that makes you a hero in my book. We'll be right back.